We want to look at the effects of an increase in G in the ISLM PC model, and we will do this under the assumption that the inflation expectations are anchored to the central bank's target inflation rate, pi bar. So we'll take pi t is equal to pi bar when we're looking at the Phillips curve. So to look at this effect, let's suppose the economy begins with medium and equilibrium. So I'll take the initial equilibrium to be A, where because I want to suppose that the economy begins with medium and equilibrium. So what we will do is, we know in medium and equilibrium output is equal to the natural level, unemployment is equal to the natural rate, and inflation is equal to its expected value, which in this case we know is pi bar, right? The medium and equilibrium condition is actual inflation is equal to expected inflation rate, and expected inflation rate in this case is just pi bar. And real interest rate is equal to the natural level of the real interest rate. Now let's just graphically illustrate this over here. We know in the upper panel we plot R and Y, and in the lower panel we will plot pi minus pi bar, because again we're assuming over here inflation expectations are anchored to the central bank's target rate, and we have Y here. So we have our downward sloping IS curve, we have our flat LM curve, and we know we're assuming that you begin with medium and equilibrium, right? Where in medium and equilibrium, where we know okay, R is equal to Rn and output is equal to the potential level, and we know the potential level of output is such that it is the x-intercept of our Phillips curve, right? So our Phillips curve is this PC, and this point is Yn, and this is our initial equilibrium, and at this point we know pi minus pi bar is 0, so pi is equal to pi bar, right? So we have satisfied all conditions of a medium and equilibrium, because we have Rn, we have Yn, and we have pi is equal to pi bar, right? So we're supposing this is what we start with, that the economy is initially medium and equilibrium. Then what happens is G increases. Now when G increases, that will cause IS to shift to the right. We know why. Because we know the IS curve shifts whenever demand changes for reasons other than interest rate. As that changes output for a given interest rate, so the entire curve shifts. So because this increase in G, because here the demand has changed because of an increase in G, which is a non-interest related factor, so IS shifts to the right. So let's shift IS curve to the right now in our figure. Alright, so let's shift the IS curve here. Okay, now let's make a little smaller shift. So that we can let me make a little smaller one. Okay, so this is IS, right? IS has shifted towards the right. Now the new short-term equilibrium will be, let's see now, now we know short-term equilibrium in the IS LMPC models occurs at the intersection of the IS and the LM curve, right? So we know, so the short-term equilibrium will be at intersection, right, at intersection of new IS and unchanged LM curve, right? This will be R, because we know short-term equilibrium is intersection of IS and LM and unchanged LM curve. So now we can see this is the new short-term equilibrium, which is A prime. Now at this equilibrium, you can see the output is above potential. This is Y prime. So we know output is above potential, right? So we have an increase in output. And we can see from the lower panel what happens to, okay, let me just make the Phillips curve a little differently so that we can look at this. Let me just make it a little properly so that we can look at this effect here easily. So let me just make it like this. Now we can easily see it. Right, so let me just erase this as well. Right, so now we can see this. Right, so output is above potential, and from the Phillips curve, we can see that this is point A prime on the Phillips curve. And at this point, we will notice that this is Y prime, right? This is this level of output we're at now. We'll notice over here, pi minus pi bar is greater than 0. So pi is greater than pi bar, right? This is what we notice over here. So the idea is that the new short-term equilibrium is at A prime, where we have number one, y prime greater than yn. So increase in output above potential. So we have increase in y above potential. So output increases above the natural level, right? So we have an increase in output above potential. That's the first thing we have, which you can see in the upper panel. Sorry, second thing we have over here is that we have because output is above potential, and hence we have, because output is above potential, we have pi greater than pi bar. We know why that happens because when output increases above potential, unemployment is below potential, right? And and that puts a pressure on wages and prices through the entire bargaining process that we saw in the WSPS model, and that causes inflation to rise, right? So we have an increase in inflation above target, increase in pi above target, right? So we have this, right? So this is what happens in the short-term equilibrium, right? The tariff shifts to the right, right? So we have this positive output gap over here, which is causing inflation to be above target, right? Which is causing inflation to exceed target, right? So this is what happens in the short-term equilibrium, that we end up at a point where output is above potential and hence inflation is above target. Now let's see what's going to happen in this case now. So now we essentially want to see that how will we come back to the medium equilibrium. So let me just clear this up so that we can look at it more easily, right? And let me just now look at how do we go. So we started off from A, shortened equilibrium caused us to go to A prime. Now you want to see how do we get back to medium and equilibrium, the adjustment process. So now at A prime, we know that y is greater than, so at A prime, y is greater than yn, right? Leading to higher inflation than target. We know we have positive output gap leading to higher inflation than target. Pi is greater than pi bar. We've established that, leading to higher inflation than target. So what the central bank will do is central bank increases our shifting LM curve upwards, right? So central bank will respond to this, increase our shifting LM curve upwards until y decreases. So it will do this until y decreases back to yn, right? So this will be a movement of the new, so this will be a movement, right? So it's going to basically, okay, we'll show this movement later in the time, and hence pi decreases to pi bar, and hence pi decreases back to pi bar. So what the central bank is going to do is, it is basically going to, right, it's going to shift the LM curve upward so that, output reaches back to the potential level, right? So we want output back at the potential level. So we want the new LM curve to intersect the new IS curve at yn. So this is what the central bank is going to do. It's going to increase LM this much, right? It's going to shift it up this much so that the new IS curve intersects the new LM curve at the point this, right, at A double prime. So what you're going to do is you're going to move along here, right? You're going to move like this. Right, let me just clear up a couple of things from here. Let me just, this was supposed to be A and this is A double prime, right? So what you're gonna do is you are going to move up along the new IS curve, and here you're gonna move down the PC curve, and this is A double prime, and this is R n prime, right? So this is what's going to happen over here. So what is happening over here is central bank increases are shifting the LM curve upwards until y decreases back to yn, right? So this is a movement of the new IS curve, right? Movement of the new IS curve like this, because you're moving from A prime to A double prime, because when the central bank increases interest rates, we know that reduces investment, which reduces demand, which reduces output, and this will keep on going until you reach back at yn. And you can see it, and hence pi decreases pi back to pi bar, and this is movement down the Phillips curve, right? Movement down the PC. Now, if the central bank does not react, inflation expectations will de-anchor, right? Now, why is it important the central bank reacts? If central bank does not react, inflation expectations will de-anchor, right? So the central bank inflation, if it does not react and let inflation, right, deviate from target too long, like pi is deviating, let inflation deviate from target too long, inflation expectations will de-anchor. So that's the central bank will have to react, increase or reduce output back to potential so that inflation goes back to pi bar. Inflation expectations will de-anchor, right? Inflation expectations will de-anchor. Right, so wage setters would start expecting higher inflation and inflation would keep on increasing, right? So we reach back to medium and equilibrium. So in medium and equilibrium, so we'll reach medium and equilibrium with the help of the central bank. Now at point A double prime, we have three things. We have output back at potential. So back at the potential level of output. Number two, inflation is back at target. ठीक है ना, and number three, now R in prime is greater than R in, right? So the what has happened is the real rate now needed to maintain, real rate now needed to maintain output at potential is higher, because the way the central bank took us to potential level of output was by increasing the real interest rate. Because when obviously you increase the real interest rate, that would cause demand and hence investment to go down. So output would go down until you come back to Y, right? To maintain output at potential is higher. Or to maintain output at potential is higher. Because so basically the whole idea over here is, so if I were to just summarize this quickly now, over here. Okay, let me just erase this and quickly summarize this. What we've looked at over here. So basically, the whole idea is that we started at point E, which was where we were assuming the economy was initially medium and equilibrium. Then G increased, IS curve shifted towards the right. We moved to A prime, where we had an increase in output above potential, and hence that caused inflation to increase above target. As a result of which, the central bank will respond, and it will increase the real interest rate, and so that the LM curve shifts upwards until output reduces back to Y. And we know how this increase in real interest rate will reduce output, right? We know the monetary transmission mechanism behind it. When real interest rate increases, demand decreases, investment decreases, and hence output decreases, right? So this is this movement from A prime to A double prime. Once output comes back to potential, inflation would come back to target as well. Right, so basically the whole idea was that initial equilibrium was A, which we were assuming was medium and equilibrium. New short-run equilibrium after G increased was A prime, and new medium and equilibrium is A double prime, right? New medium and equilibrium is A double prime. Something else to keep in mind over here is that we will have similar effects if IS curve shifted to the right for reasons other than increase in G. Although here we analyze graphically the effects of an increase in G, but the results would be similar whether the IS curve has shifted towards the right for other reasons as well.